Hello and welcome to the A.T.TIPSCAST, where we explore free or nearly free tools and strategies that can be used to help all learners. I'm your host, Chris Bouguet. This is episode 137, recorded on December 5th, 2014. This episode is a special spotlight episode where we're highlighting many of the awesome features built into the suite of products offered by our longtime sponsor, TextHelp. If you're a longtime listener of the A.T.TIPScast, you've heard the spots at the beginning of many episodes for the amazing Read&Write software. We use this particular product in the school district for which I work, and it's been a revolutionary tool for helping students when it comes to supporting their reading, writing, and research goals. To help share how the product works and why the features of the product are so imperative for students, I interviewed Jason Carroll, the Global Operations Manager for TextHelp. We recorded the interview as a Google Hangout, so you can check out the video over at A.T.TIPSCAST.com. Now, get ready to hear all about a tool I use and show teachers just about every day. A.T.TIP number 440, Read and Write. Hey there, everybody. This is Chris Bouguet from the A.T.TIPScast, and today I have a special guest named Jason Carroll, and he is the Global Product Manager for TextHelp. Is that right, Jason?
That's right. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, welcome to the A.T.TIPScast. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could join us. So here's what I was hoping we could talk about today, is that TextHelp has been a longtime supporter and sponsor of the A.T.TIPScast, and I put that spot on at the beginning of many of the episodes, and sometimes I wonder, how is that really reaching the audience? Are they, like, I've heard of TextHelp, but I don't really know what it is, and sometimes I think of it sort of like if I talk to people about like the Fitbit or Twitter, like you say, what's a Fitbit? Well, it's kind of a thing I wear on my wrist, or Twitter, it's this app that I can talk to other people in 140 characters, but they don't really know the power behind it. Like, oh, how can I actually use the Fitbit to change my life? How do I use Twitter why would I use that? What is the benefit of it? And sometimes I think with the spot that we put on the podcast, people hear about it, but they don't really know the inner workings of it. And so that would be a good idea to have you on to kind of explain, what is TextHelp? What's special about that company?
Sure. It's a good question. Good way to start things. So TextHelp, I think you say in your openings, you'll say, provide literacy support software, and that's a good place to start. So when we say literacy support software, to get more specific, you're a struggling reader or a struggling writer, then we have software that can help. And so that comes in all sorts of versions. A lot of people may be using our stuff but not realize, it's not called TextHelp. TextHelp's just the company. So, for example, we have Read&Write Gold and Read&Write for Google. We have products called Fluency Tutor for Google. We have iPad apps. But the whole idea is everything that we create and produce, the idea is that's going to help, struggling readers and writers. And so I guess kind of one of the things, if you think about it, that makes us really unique, because there's several companies that make several different supports, is we try to take a lot of the common kind of assistive and useful technologies for reading and writing, and we put them all in one place. So in the case of Read&Write Gold, for example, you're going to have a toolbar, and the toolbar just can sit at the top of your screen, so it's not like you're going into a separate program or an application. You just have this additional support toolbar at the top of your screen, and that toolbar is going to have tons of useful supports on it that you can use in any environment. So maybe you need text read aloud, or maybe you need help typing, or maybe you need a kind of a mind mapping brainstorming tool. That's all available from the toolbar, and then you can use those tools, if you're on the internet, or if you're in a Google Doc, or if you're using Microsoft Word. So you don't have to leave your environment. You just use our tools to make it more accessible. And so we do that for Windows machines, Read&Write Gold, which is what I was just talking about. We also have it for Mac machine as well. Have supports for Google. Tons of schools are using Google now. They're going to Google Apps for Education. So happy to talk about that a bit, and as well as apps for iPads and that sort of thing as well.
Gotcha. So you mean if a school has like Chromebooks, for instance, then you have a solution for Chromebooks where back in the day before Chromebooks existed, you just had Read&Write Gold, which is a software install. Does that sum it up?
Yeah, it does. It's funny if you go back 5 years. It's pretty much all Windows machines and Macs. So we had a product that worked on Macintosh, on Apple's, and we had a product that worked on PCs and Windows machines, and that was it. And that was simple. And now you have iPads, and not only do you have iPads, you've got like iPads 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, iPad Mini, iPad Air, right? And then you're gonna have iPhones and iPods, and then you're gonna have Android devices. But I can't even name half the Android devices. You know, there's the Nexus and the Samsung Galaxy and all
Totally.
the tablets, right? So things got complicated really fast, and our customers were saying, "Hey, we love your stuff, love what you're doing, but we've got this or we've got that." And so you're exactly right. So take Chromebooks, for example. 3 years ago, I don't even know. I think Chromebooks are about 3 years old now, although it seems like they've been out for a while. But you can't install. So you don't install software like you would on a Mac or a PC. You can't take that software and install it on a Chromebook. So we come up with a Chrome extension, and that's called Read&Write for Google. And if you just use the Chrome browser, so you don't even have to, on a Chromebook it works great, but you could use it on a Chrome browser, on a Windows or a Mac machine as well. But yeah, you just go right to the Chrome store and install our stuff, and you can use it on a Chromebook there as well. So it's always keeping us busy, trying to make sure that we have all these supports on all the different devices that students are using these days.
All right, so you mentioned install your stuff or have your stuff available on the Chromebook or the iPad or whatever. What is the stuff, right? What does Read&Write for Google look like, or Read&Write for the installation? What are some of the features of the software?
Sure. So I'll hit some of the highlights, because I know we don't have all night, but it's funny. It's grown over time, and if you think of some of the most beneficial features that you could use if you're a struggling reader or writer, I mentioned a couple of them there. You'd have things like text to speech. You'd have word prediction. You'd have like study tools and research tools and graphic organizer tools, tools that can take your text and make an audio file out of it, and all these different kind of tools that you would have. So those are the types of features that I'm referring to. If you take probably the most common and popular and probably the most useful one, would be the text-to-speech software. So text-to-speech software, and I'm sure most of your audience is familiar with that, but it's software that can read digital text out loud. And it sounds easy enough, and there's plenty of things that do that. But if you really dive down into what makes text-to-speech, user-friendly and actually useful, what makes it make a difference, and you need a few things. I mean, having a high-quality voice, that's a plus. I don't know if that's something you have to have, but so we have a dozen different voices that you can choose from, even voices in different language. So if you speak English as a second language, for example, you could pop up Spanish, for example. You could pop up Spanish text, switch to a Spanish voice, have it read aloud, and it would be crystal clear, just like it would in English or other languages as well. But we also do things like when you would have the text read aloud, it will highlight the word as it's reading it out loud, and we call that dual color highlighting. And it's really important. First, we highlight the sentence so the student knows what sentence is being read aloud, and then we highlight each word as it's being read aloud. And it really makes sense if you think about it. I use the example often of my daughter, who now she's in second grade and is a great reader. But back in the day, right, when I was reading to her at the evening, what did I do in the evening when I read out loud to her?
You're pointing to each word as you went along?
Yeah, I'd point to each word as I read it, so she would hear the word, she would see it. Same basic principle that we try to use with text-to-speech. And text-to-speech can help kids. Not only can it help increase fluency and comprehension, it can even help increase writing scores, because after students write, they can listen back to what they wrote, and they can hear if it sounds right or not. But for that whole comprehension piece and stuff, it's critical to have that kind of dual color highlighting going on. So that's just one kind of real specific example there with text-to-speech, but then multiply that times 20 different features that you have available.
Totally. I think one of the other important parts of text-to-speech is you have a teacher, right, who is maybe they've moved away from textbooks and now they're looking for web-based content. And so you have readers, or you have people who want to access that content, and the readers are different levels. So that might be the perfect website, and you'd ask the students to go read it, but some of those students you'd know that content is too high. So by being able to listen to the content and watch it being read aloud, now you've changed the activity from being a reading activity to a listening activity.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think sometimes we lose that. I always have heard it called the curse of knowledge. Like we just know how to read at our level, and we forget how hard it is and all the work that goes into trying to understand or trying to read things that are above your level. And there's so much that goes into like breaking a word down and understanding its meaning, and it can kill comprehension, right? So you're exactly right. Open up that same passage, use text-to-speech to have it read aloud, and it can open up a whole world of possibilities. A funny thing that, it's not really funny, but something I've noticed over the years is when we find a lot of times in elementary school that a student is a struggling reader, what we do is we find some kind of strategy to help that student read. And that's an excellent idea. You should do that because there are strategies that work, and they will help you learn to read. But strategies don't work overnight. They may take months or even years to work. And what we end up having are students 2 years later that can read on grade level because of the strategies, but they missed 2 years of content, right? And so they're still behind. So just think if on top of those strategies, you gave them access to text-to-speech so they could still access the content, then once the strategies kicked in, they would be right where they needed to be. So it's just food for thought, right?
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned another feature. The other maybe biggest feature would be, I mean, there's tons of features built into the toolbar, but one of the other more popular features would be word prediction. And I think word prediction is continuing to grow in popularity as predictive text becomes more like part of people's life in their phones and their stuff. So tell me about word prediction.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you hit it on the you hit the nail on the head there. And I actually saw your TED Talk where you were talking about some of the same things, like if you want to see the future type things. It's so funny because I was an assistive technology consultant for 10 years before joining on with Text Help. And if I think back, when I would recommend word prediction, it would really be for students that had significant needs, right? And now anybody with a smartphone uses some form of word prediction.
Or anyone who uses a Google search.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you start typing, it knows, and it helps you do better searches, right?
Right.
So, so it's a funny thing how fast it's grown. But yeah, word prediction. There's word prediction that exists like on iPhones and things like that, and then there's really like solid word prediction programs, and I won't get into all the nerdy stuff of what makes them different, but there is a difference between like specialized word prediction software and the things you would get on a phone. And what we find is that word prediction helps a number of students. I remember in the past if a student would have a physical disability, so they would have a hard time accessing a keyboard, word prediction was great because we know for a fact that our word prediction will reduce the number of keystrokes by 60%. And if you have a hard time touching, grabbing the keystrokes and things like that, then that's a great feature. But then if you look at it, it can help. There's just so many kids that could benefit from it. You're talking poor spellers. We know that, for example, Martin, he's our CTO, and he was involved in looking at a few studies where kids don't want to write about cats and dogs, but sometimes they can only spell cat and dog, so that's what they write about. And kids that use word prediction, because they don't have to focus on spelling and things like that, they write longer stories with bigger words, and they can really express themselves better, and that's going to help all the way almost K through 12. And another place I see it underutilized, almost like text-to-speech, is for emerging writers, like students when they're just starting, to write in keyboard. Some kids, the younger you are, the more age matters, right? Because if there's a 5 and a 6-year-old, well, the 6-year-old's got like an extra fifth of their whole life, on the other kid. So having access to things like word prediction can really help level the playing field for those students. And ESL is another one. If I guess you would say the alphabet. We don't necessarily use the alphabet principle here in the U.S. And what I mean by that is, the word P makes a P sound. So why would that be at the front of phone? Uh-huh. So when you're learning English as a second language, it's really hard to spell words correctly, and word prediction will, if you start spelling F-O-N, well, then it would predict it would predict phone as an option. So, and just one example of how it works too, like, so I am going to nerd out on you just a bit, but currently, currently when we're looking at word prediction, I'll have to make sure I have my numbers right. I jotted them down here. But currently when you look at word prediction, we've got I think it's about a 250,000 kind of word bank that we look from. So we'll look back we're kind of looking back a word to try to guess what your next word is going to be, but
Okay.
we're taking that up, and now we're moving from 250,000, which would be 3-word phrases. So at most you're kind of looking a word behind and a word after to try to determine what you're going to type.
Okay.
That helps it be grammatically correct and things like that, but it's not always exactly what you would want. But
Uh-huh.
we're scaling that up to a 10 million word phrase bank. So we're looking at 5 words now instead of 3. So we could theoretically work like 3 words back to determine what you're typing next.
Provide more context for what you're trying to type. Okay.
It really does, because people in word prediction are a lot of times focused on like having word banks and things like that. But with that big of a database, you're looking at, we use the help of Google, who scanned pretty much every book that's been in existence. And because of that, if the word you're looking for is not on that list, it's probably never been typed in the history of books. So you get a really grammatical, kind of accurate example there. A good example is if I gave you of its, what could come after that?
Of its, I don't know. Of
Yeah,
it.
there could be. It's the reason it's hard to think of is because there's like an unlimited amount of things you could be talking about there,
Yeah.
right? But what if I said some of its?
Some of its features, some of its time,
What if I said some, S-U-M?
some of its parts.
Yeah, very good, right?
Yeah.
See how that extra some of its narrowed that down so much more to provide better context, where before it's very difficult to do that, and now by expanding it about that much, it just opens up a whole new world of opportunities, anywhere from spelling to writing to all those kind of things. So anyways, like I said, I nerded out on you a bit, but it makes it just the kind of stuff we're working on right now.
That's really exciting. That's really exciting. We work with word prediction in my job as well, and you see the students use it, and we use it in conjunction with other tools that are in the toolbar. So one of my favorite strategies for the longest time has been marrying word prediction with the voice note feature, which is also built into at least the toolbar that we use, the installed toolbar on the PCs. And so the idea is that a student has trouble generating they can tell you what they want. You can pull them back into the back of the room and they would tell you their essay, but it's writing their essay, getting it actually out where they'd have difficulty. So the idea is what we've taught students to do is they record the voice, like record one sentence at a time, maybe put it in a table or in a graphic organizer where they just record their voice, and then using word prediction they go back and they type it in. So their thoughts are already out, and then they're typing it in. And so many, I think other AT professionals might say, well, why don't I just use like speech recognition software? And I know that's built into the toolbar as well, but I like using this first because it teaches them to use the keyboard, where speech recognition doesn't necessarily teach them the keyboarding skill. It doesn't give them the practice of keyboarding. So, different students, different strategies, and you find the right strategy for each student. But that's one where you marry the different tools that are available in the toolbar, and I found it really helps students.
Yeah, I really like that. That's good, and I agree with you. I think using maybe speech recognition or dictation, I kind of like that when you're ready for your final paper or a draft. But for that whole for that brainstorming process and all that kind of stuff, I like staying away from that and doing more of the kind of strategy stuff that you're talking about there. But you're right. There's so many features. We covered 2, and then you mentioned another one. But there's so many on there. But if you get into writing, for example, there are all the different kind of stages of writing, all the way from brainstorming to to doing your draft and going back and doing editing and all that, and anything from advanced spell check to homophone check and all those kind of things to the graphic organizer itself. You have those sort of things available there in Read&Write Gold. Read&Write for Google specifically is for Google Apps for Education users. It doesn't have all the things on there that Read&Write Gold has, but you also got to consider that TextHelp's been around for 20 years. And Read&Write for Google's been around for 2. Right?
Yeah.
So we're slowly but surely getting all the things and some kind of extra neat kind of tools and features and stuff like that built into Google as we go. In fact, we've really seen our we've seen our Google usage. It's just skyrocketed, and I know you're a big fan of the UDL approach in schools, and we find that often. We found that often actually when we're talking about Read and Write for Google, because as a Chrome extension, you just go to the Chrome Web Store and install it, and there it is.
And
And
there, yeah.
yeah, if I go home and log in on my computer and sign into Chrome, there it is. And if I don't have my computer, if you'd be kind enough to let me borrow your computer for a minute, I could sign in, and there it is, right?
You go to the public library.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and also, like, if, say, Google doesn't update, and now, for whatever reason, one of the features aren't working correctly. Well, so we'll figure that out, immediately. We'll publish an update, and then within 8 hours, everybody in the world, has the new extension. So it's just anytime there's an update or anytime there's a new feature, you just have it. There's not a big kind of uninstall, reinstall, update, all that kind of stuff. So I think because of that, it's so easy to push out and deploy and access. It really is helping with universal design for learning. It's helping it really come to life. It's been talked about for years and years, but I think this really helps. The ease of use of the technology really helps with it.
Totally. So, all right, so you talked about Google Apps for education. You kind of led us in that direction. So what exactly, what are some of the features there that are in Google Apps or in the extension?
Sure. So it's a little tricky, and we're always growing it because, so currently, if you think about Google Docs is the equivalent of Microsoft Word, right? So currently, if you install the extension, you go to open a Google document after you install the extension, and you're going to have a little toolbar that you can pull down, and that toolbar is going to have text-to-speech and word prediction. It's going to have what we call study skills tools, so basically highlighters that you can go and highlight paragraphs of text and collect those highlights in a new Google document. You can even highlight individual words and have a nice little vocabulary list built, and it'll include the definition and a picture and kind of a little notes area and all that.
Hold on one second. Hold on. I tell you, those two features that you just mentioned are huge, and I don't want to just gloss over them because the teachers, then when I show them that's jaw-dropping, right? They're like, wait a second, wait. I can just put in my vocabulary words for the study guide that I want the students to study, and all of a sudden it comes up with a definition of each one of those words and a picture and a place where I can add notes so students can, again, record their own voice or type whatever that word is in a sentence. I mean, teachers use that all the time, like I said, for study guides, or for, spelling tests. Here's the spelling list for the week. Here's all your spelling words. Now you can use it in a sentence, that kind of stuff. So that, I think, is a huge feature. And then the highlights that you mentioned, again, I remember back in the day when I had to do like a research project, what I do is I go to the library, I'd get the books out, I would look for information. I couldn't highlight the books until I was in college and I owned the books, and then I could highlight information. But I would, instead of highlighting, I would say, oh, here's a piece of information, and I'd put it on a note card, and then I'd have my stack of note cards, and then I would take those note cards and I'd reshuffle them around to put them in my own words, and then I'd write my essay, right? And I think that experience, when I talk to teachers about it, they're like, yeah, that's what I did too.
Everybody can relate.
But now here we are, where we have these digital tools like what you're just talking about, that's built in to the Read and Write Gold. Well, that's in both Read and Write Gold, the installation and the extension in Google Apps. Now what they can do is highlight that information just like we did, but it collects the information for them together, and then they just have to kind of put it in their own words, right? I mean, that's the collecting part.
Yep.
So if you're doing an essay on, let's say, how many colors are there in the?
4.
There are 4 different colors, right? So you could, if you're doing your essay on polar bears, right? It's like everything I find on polar bears and what they're eating, I'm going to mark in blue. That's their diet. But everything about where polar bears live, I'm going to mark that in green. And everything on polar bears, or people who study polar bears, that's going to be in yellow. And then I hit the Collect Highlights button, and it groups all of those things together so that it's sort of, it hasn't written the essay for me, but it's collected all of my notes so that it chunked those things together. All the blue stuff goes together, all the green stuff goes together, all the yellow stuff goes together, so that now I have my notes in one spot, sort of like I would in the old days shuffle my cards together, and now I can start putting that in my own words.
Yeah, that's why I love hanging out with you, those ideas. That's great. Like, you really is as long as you've kind of got that creative mindset, you can do so many different things in this, right? Whether it's main idea in one color and supporting detail in another, or whether you're building a vocabulary list for students and then sharing it out, or having students build their own vocabulary list. There's so many different things you can do with just those highlighting features. Yeah, you're exactly right. And then there's also a dictionary, a talking dictionary, a picture dictionary. All those kind of things are built in as well. Now, keep in mind, specific to Google, that toolbar is just in Google Docs, right? And we thought, well, that's good, and that's where we started. Read and Write for Google started as just kind of a little project to see how fast it would take off, and people were interested, and people really liked it. So then we expanded it, and now we have a version that when you install it, you'll also get it. We just call it a web toolbar. So it puts a little icon in your address bar that on any web page, you just click the little icon, and now you have a web toolbar with the same tools. The text-to-speech doesn't have word prediction, but it's got the text-to-speech and the highlighting tools and dictionary and picture dictionary, all those sort of things. It even has this cool little simplify tool. I don't know, have you played with it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's new. The simplify tool is, we released the simplify tool and speech input a couple of months ago. So you can do speech input in Google Docs.
Okay.
And on web pages, we have a simplify tool. And what it does is if you click it when you're on a web page, it kind of declutters the page. So it pulls all the text out, and it just gives you just the text on kind of a white background. Because if you're on like CNN and you got all these ads, click me, right? Or look over here. So it just takes the content out and puts it on a white background. But what on top of that, it still gives you access to the toolbar. So you can still highlight the text and extract it, collect your highlights or use the text-to-speech. And on top of that, it's got a little simplify button, a plus and minus on the top. So if you hit the minus, it will start reducing the amount of text.
Like summarizing it.
It actually, so just to differentiate it a bit, instead of summarizing it, it just reduces the amount of text.
Okay.
So you can already see the inherent issues that you could have with some students on it, but there are some students that if you have a 10-page doc, it's just not going to get anywhere. So
exactly. You know who that is? That's most students, right? It's like me when I get on Facebook and someone has put a big rant. You know what I do is just scroll right by it. So too much stuff.
You'll keep the main ideas, but may lose some of the details that go along with it. But it's still a great tool for some students. And even if you don't use that part, the simplify piece itself, the declutter part, and then still being able to use the toolbar, it's great. So that covers. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, what I love about that is that it's all in one toolbar, right? So I know there are other extensions that do that, but why go use a different extension when you have it all in one place?
Yep. Yeah, right. And the other extensions that do it, then you still need something else like to do the text-to-speech and all this. So
exactly. It's a juggling act of using different extensions or different apps when this is all built into one contained area.
Yeah, so that covers web pages. So we do all that stuff on web pages when you're using Chrome. And we talked about Google Docs when you're using Chrome. And then we also, if you have PDF files or EPUB files, or even KESI files that you would happen to put in Google Drive, then if you have our extension installed and you click on them, they'll open in our viewer. So then our viewer will go through and it'll read the text aloud, allow you to make annotations, so you can do fill in the blank things. If you put a worksheet up, you can do little typewriter annotations. So just all that stuff on a PDF or an EPUB file.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and then we ran into the problem about PDF files, some of them not being accessible, or if I got a worksheet here, how do I get that in a PDF? So we just added it's just been busy, Chris, I tell you. We just added a new add-on called Snapverter. So if you install Snapverter, there's a free trial with it. You get 10 free scans and then another scan each week. So if you install it, you'll always have access to some scans. But you can just snap a picture of any page and drop it in a special folder that we'll put in Google Drive for you. Wait a couple of minutes, and now it's going to be an accessible PDF. So your image will be an accessible PDF. You can then open it with Read and Write for Google and use those typewriter annotation tools to fill in the blank or have things read out loud and all that. So
that's wild. I can't wait to play with that. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's good. So that's that's Read and Write for Google. It's definitely keeping us busy, and customers have been great, and there's all kinds of feedback, and we keep trying to add to it and all those kind of things.
So cool. What's happening next? What's coming up next for Text Help?
So we're going to continue to add some things to Read and Write for Google. There's going to be some new features there that we're hoping to add to it soon. And so, like, for example, something in Read and Write Gold is you can select text and turn it into an audio file. So we're going to add that to Read and Write for Google as well, so you can go out and select text, make it an MP3 file that you can listen to. A couple of things there that we're doing. We've released something called Fluency Tutor for Google, and it's for it's kind of one of those learning to read tools, so where we have hundreds of passages that you can share with students. Students can listen to them, and then they can record. They can hit record button and read it, and then that's shared back with the teacher, so the teacher can then listen to it to see how they did and download and score it and give feedback. So that's Fluency Tutor for Google that we've been working on. We're also working on, so we have an iPad app, and this is like new stuff. So I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say here, but but we've got an iPad app, and the problem with iPad apps has always been so it does great word prediction, right? But if I want to use that word prediction when I'm typing an email or when I'm in a Google Doc on my iPad, well, it doesn't do me any. I would have to type it, I guess, in the app and then copy and paste it.
Copy and paste it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not really kind of I don't know. It's
the juggling. You're juggling apps now.
So what we're doing is we've got something in place that we hope to have ready here in hopefully around ATIA time. That would be an iPad version of Read and Write. So it would be Read and Write for iPad that would work in any app, in Google Docs on an iPad, in whatever it would be that you're using on an iPad, and it would include the text-to-speech and the word prediction and the picture dictionary and the regular talking dictionary and all those kind of things. So that's something we're pretty excited about because people have been asking for something like that for a long time now.
Awesome, and so that's coming up soon. Like you said, ATIA is in January, so
and right on the heels of that, I don't know which one's first or if it's a dead even race here, but we also Read and Write Gold. We're on version 11 for the PC, and we're coming out with it's 11 and a half. This is going to be Read and Write Gold 11.5.
Okay.
And the big changes there are a lot of people. Well, if you're using Read and Write Gold for Windows, then you're using a Windows machine. And a lot of people are now using Office 365. Not as much as Google, but some people are using it. So this is going to allow you to use Read and Write Gold with Office 365. And it's also going to have, if you're a current user, the way we read PDFs, we use something called PDF Aloud. It's a little add-in into Adobe. So we're going to kind of get away from the Adobe thing and have our own PDF viewer, and that way you can use the whole toolbar in the PDF. So you'd have access to those highlighting tools and all the dictionary and all those things, not just text-to-speech.
That's fantastic. I know a teacher has been wanting that too when I showed to him, hey, how can we use, so that's awesome. Cool,
well,
it sounds exciting.
Lots of stuff going on, yeah, and I've got another little project too. I won't get into it too much because I know we're running out of time, but for all those Google Apps for Education users, we find a lot of people really wanting additional training and real life how-to strategies about how I can implement this and that. So we're working on it. It's pretty exciting, actually, the professional development solution for Google Apps users, and it's not just go in and watch a few videos. It takes strategies that have been shown to work. So there's some literature behind it that says, yeah, this strategy's worked somewhere. Take that and we say, here's this strategy. Here's what it is. Here's how you would use that in the Google Apps environment. And then here's some specific examples. So for example, if maybe you're doing it using some kind of Google form or Google Doc, then we'd have some examples that you could take and make those your own. And we'd have some little how-to videos in case you don't really know how to create a form. Those would be in there as well. It's pretty exciting stuff. So we're going to have this thing ready to go soon. So we've been very busy.
That sounds really exciting. I can't wait to check those out. Do you have a name for that? Do you know what that's called? Or
yeah, we do. It's going to be Teach. It's just Teach for Google. So yeah. So that will be that's where we're going with that. So lots of exciting stuff going on there.
Yeah, that does sound exciting. All right, well, Jason, anything else? So if people are listening to this right now and they're like, all right, I want to check out Read and Write. How do they contact you? What's the best way for them to learn more about text help? They want to get Read and Write for one of their whatever solution, whatever hardware they're using. What's the best avenue for them to take to learn more about text help or get in contact with you?
Yeah, sure. So the website is just www.texthelp.com. So if you go to texthelp.com and click on products, it'll show you all of our different products and you can check it out. I keep a blog, and that's just going to be blog.texthelp.com. So you can go there and read up on some. That's not, I'll put when we're doing, if we got a new product release, I'll do it. But other than that, you can check out the last 3 or 4 posts. It's just kind of ed tech and assistive tech kind of related stuff. It's just general useful stuff there.
I can vouch for it because I subscribe to the blog. I get the blog posts. I read them.
Cool. There'll be a new one coming out. There'll be a new one coming out tomorrow. So, and then if you just want to get in touch with me, that's you're more than welcome to just send me an email. And so that's j.carroll, and Carroll is Carroll, so 2 R's, 2 L's. So j.carroll@texthelp.com. So one of those 3 things that should take care of whatever someone needs.
Okay, and I'll make sure I put all of those links on the A.T.TIPSCAST website so people can just, if they go to that website, they can click on that and have access to all of it. I mean, TextHelp has been on that website forever, so people should know that website already.
Cool. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you having me on. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and me clarifying for people what exactly TextHelp is, and Read&Write Gold, and all the different. I mean, it's so exciting what you guys are doing. Like my colleague Sally Norton-Dar says, and I think she nailed the phrase. She's like, these guys know what they're doing. These guys have the solutions, right? And so that's why we always look to you. So really appreciate it. I know we in the school district that I work for. It's helped so many students, whether they had a disability or whether they didn't. We just put it out as a solution for every student, and it's changed lives. You're really doing good work. So thanks, JP.
That's excellent. Hey, I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you saying. And I should say too, with the Read&Write for Google piece, it's that freemium model. So speaking to what you said, we took what we thought was the most valuable piece, which is text to speech. That remains free for everyone forever. And if you're a teacher or an educator, if you can have access to everything for free so that you can learn it and use it as needed and build your vocabulary lists and all those sort of things.
The whole thing is free. I mean, there's parts of it that are free for anybody, but if you're a teacher, it's free because you're a teacher.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be a little, and if you have questions, you can let me know. But when you're in there, you'll see there's a way to go. If you're a teacher, you just fill out some information and it you'll confirm you're a teacher, and then you just have access to it for free. So.
That's awesome. All right, well, thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for coming on to the A.T.TIPScast, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you down at ATIA.
Yeah, I look forward to it. See you, Chris.
I hope you enjoyed that special look into the Read&Write software. I hope you can see how its many features can work to support so many of your students. Now, a few quick reminders before we wrap up. Sally Norton-Dar and I will be doing a webinar for ATIA coming up on December 11th at 3:30 p.m. called Getting Your AT Party Started, Answers to Commonly Asked Questions About Program Building. It's not too late to register. We'll be answering all types of questions about how to develop a successful assistive technology practice in your school district. Please join us. You can register at bit.ly/ATIA-AT-Party. That's bit.ly/ATIA-AT-Party. Also, Beth Poss and I are hosting a pre-conference session at the ATIA conference this year called Technology-Driven Data Collection, Using Digital Tools to Document Progress. That full-day session is on Wednesday, January 28th, and we'll be talking about how to use technology to streamline and improve data collection strategies. Tell everyone you know to sign up over at bit.ly/DataATIA15. That's bit.ly/DataATIA15. We hope to see you there. Until next time, may all your strategies be supportive, may all your interventions be inclusive, and may all your students have access to everything they need, however they need it.